This is Grandmaster Belial, addressing all warriors of the First Company.
Hello all you Terminator-loving, Xeno-slaying cosmonauts. As always, I am Cosmic, and today we're going to get to review Space Hulk Deathwing, which was developed by Streum On Games and published by Focus Home Interactive. Now, Space Hulk Deathwing is a first-person shooter that is based on the Space Hulk board game by Games Workshop, which is of course set in the universe of Warhammer 40,000. Now, this is a game I have been waiting for the entire year, as have many Warhammer 40k fans. Space Hulk Deathwing places you in the role of a Terminator aboard the Space Hulk Olethros. Now, for those of you who don't know, Space Hulks are giant amalgamations of ships that are all crumpled together in the warp, and then they get released from the warp and they float through space. Now, you, as part of this Terminator squad, your sole objective is to go through the Space Hulk, recover what you can, and battle the various hordes of Tyranid gene stealers who are set against you. In the single player campaign, you play as the librarian, and you're in charge of a squad of Deathwing Terminators from the Dark Angels chapter. So as a librarian, not only are you master of melee and ranged combat, but you're also a powerful psyker with the abilities to use powerful psychic attacks against those pesky gene stealers. So the first place I wanted to start was map design, which I have to say I absolutely loved. It really captured the essence of the board game. It really captured the essence of Space Hulks in the fact that you're not on this open battlefield. You are on a massive Space Hulk, an amalgamation of ships. There's going to be corridors, everything's going to be breaking apart, there's going to be ships into other ships, there's going to be broken corridors, there's going to be just absolute chaos when it comes to structural integrity, and this game pulls that off absolutely perfectly. I love walking down the corridors in my giant space hulking armor, with the various almost fluidity mixed in with a bit of clunkiness, because ultimately you are in a giant suit of armor that is going to be very heavy, and so you need to feel that clunkiness in terms of feedback, and the game pulls that off really well. The great thing about Deathwing in terms of the map design is the fact that each level is absolutely enormous, and on top of that they have a varied aesthetic. So you get to experience a Black Templar's Crusade ship, you get to experience a Dark Angel ship, you get to experience all kinds of different environments within these ships themselves, which keeps the environments fresh. On top of that, you have a numerous amount of secrets to find, which are relics, which not only are fun collectibles, but they do improve your character should you find them. Now, speaking of character progression, this is something that is contained in both the single player and the multiplayer in different forms. So in the single player, as you go along and complete missions, and depending on how well you complete missions, you'll gain further points. You can spend these points in 3 different trees to access various abilities and equipment, or improve your AI squad overall. Now, in multiplayer, you gain experience and you level up, which will unlock you new equipment and various abilities that you can use in multiplayer matches. And I love the fact that there's progression in both. Each is different, each is suited for the specific mode, and it works really well. Now let's talk about the gunplay and the combat mechanics of the game, because this is something that I have to say is a pretty mixed bag in my opinion. It's still a lot of fun, and I have to say that the positives certainly outweigh the negatives, but oh boy are there some negatives here, and the negatives and positives vary wildly depending on what weapon you're using. I feel like the balance isn't quite there. The feedback, the recoil for certain weapons isn't quite right on a lot of them, and I think that they're certainly going to be needing some patching as we progress further with Deathwing. Now, for some weapons, I have to say that I was very disappointed with the accuracy. You don't feel like you're in control. Even with things like the Stormbolter, it doesn't feel as accurate as it possibly should. The assault cannon, the large Gatling gun, I understand isn't going to be wildly accurate, but even so, on a game that emphasizes things like headshots and rewards you for getting things like headshots, there's a serious lack of ranged weaponry that offers that deadly accuracy. Even when zooming in with most rifles or most guns, you're still not going to be able to get clean headshots all the time, and that is very problematic. Now, like I said, the recoil and the feedback on certain weapons also doesn't feel right. Take the Stormbolter, for example. The Stormbolter is not a machine gun. It is a micro rocket launcher. You are firing mini explosives, and the feedback should reflect that. The sound should reflect that. And at the moment, it isn't bad, but it's just not quite right. The biggest problems in terms of feedback is the majority of the melee weapons, particularly the one-handed melee weapons. The sword, the force axe, have a significant lack of feedback. They don't feel like, these heavy weapons. You don't feel like you're hitting anything. Compare that to something like Warhammer then times Vermintide, where the melee combat was so good in that game, then you do feel a little disappointed. However, it is made up for in things like the Thunder Hammer, because when you get that weapon, that feels heavy. That feels like it's packing a punch. When you hit something with the Thunder Hammer, it explodes, and you really get that sense of this is a kick-ass weapon. And so for me, overall, while the gunplay is pretty solid for the most part, it does have its varying amount of issues, and I feel that it is something that can be fixed over time with the developers, taking another look at it based on player feedback and, tweaking it so that it does feel much better. But overall, it does need a little bit more work, and I feel that maybe they should have held off a little longer just to get that quite right. Sticking on the negative side of things, let's talk about the technical state of the game, because I was not impressed with it at all. I absolutely love the graphics. I love the aesthetic. Yes, some textures could be worked on. Yes, you can see that the game had a budget and, didn't go crazy. It's not a true AAA game in that sense. It certainly worked to a budget, but for the most part, it looks fantastic. The problem comes in the performance of the game. It is so unoptimized at the moment. You're talking about, regardless of what settings you'll play on, and I tried them all, high, medium, low, I was experiencing significant frame rate drops. Like, the frame rate was just tanking at times for no apparent reason. And I would understand if it was a case of the frame rate would maybe tank when there were too many enemies on screen, when there was a massive horde of gene stealers in front of you. But you're talking the frame rate was tanking when there was maybe 2 enemies ahead of me, and it didn't really make sense why. And the only reason that I can think of that was causing it was the fact that currently the game is just unoptimized. On top of that, I was a little disappointed with some of the special effects in the game. I don't think they really lived up to what I came to expect from, especially a game where the Terminators look fantastic and some of the character models look fantastic and the environments look fantastic, and then you're getting these special effects from Psyker abilities, for example, or the bullet decals that just look really cheap, and that just let it down in a. The game also is a little buggy at the time being, and I have to say that I've encountered maybe 3 bugs in total in my entire playthrough. In particular, one painful one was when Chapter 4 was loading up and decided that it would skip the briefing, skip all the story segments, skip the cutscene, and what will happen is it would load my character into the level with this kind of white fog over the screen. My teammates will be frozen solid and God mode would be on, and I would be able to go through the level without being able to see but unable to die, and that kept occurring, and it was a repeatable bug that I eventually managed to fix by loading up the game again and again and again until it worked. Now, it may sound like I'm being really negative, but a lot of these technical problems can be ironed out over time. I just wish there was a little bit more polish overall to the game. That being said, though, There's so many good things about this game, and I haven't even started talking about multiplayer yet. But before we talk about multiplayer, I want to say how much I enjoyed the story. The voice acting was great, everything I came to expect from a Warhammer 40k game. The story was pretty interesting, I really enjoyed the playthrough. The overall atmosphere and aesthetic that the game provides is fantastic. The way that they use sound is pretty damn good too, especially the use of directional signs, so you can tell where the gene stealers are coming from. You can hear them running through the pipes overhead, and it helps to create this overall atmosphere, especially when you are in this giant ship. It's really dark, you're down a single corridor, you can't move side to side, and you can hear the gene stealers swarming around you. On top of that, the ship is moving and breaking and creaking, and it just creates an atmosphere that is absolutely fantastic. Now, the thing that I wanted to finish off with is multiplayer, because multiplayer is something that is going to keep this game alive. Now, the game may succeed, and the developers might decide to release new expansions for the single player, which I hope they do, certainly, because I think that it's a game that is well worth doing that too. But multiplayer is, for the most part, where the longevity and replayability is going to come from. And for me, the multiplayer works really well. I really like the idea. It's very similar in style to things like Left 4 Dead, things like Vermintide, where you're taking a co-op team against the story missions. And for me, it's the best way to experience the game. While the AI companions in the single player, they're okay. You can give them commands on that really awful radial wheel, but it's no substitute for playing with a squad of Terminators with real players. And if you can get a group of friends together, then every single negative of this game is absolutely irrelevant because you're having fun with your friend. Not only that, but it's also where the real challenge of the game lies. As if you get a full squad of human Terminators, then the game is going to throw some pretty difficult crap at you, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. Add into that the fact that you have character progression and can unlock various weapons as you level up, and you're set for a quality time. For me, it's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic budget game. Yes, it hasn't had, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on it, but for what it is, I think it's done a fantastic job. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, it has a very specific set of problems. It's currently a technical mess. It's buggy. It's got, unoptimization problems. It has various balance issues. But it's something that at its core is really good, and I hope it really succeeds because it's something to build upon. It's the foundation, it's the groundwork for a really great experience. And if the developers can patch out the issues and then expand the content, you're going to have a game that will last you a long time as a Warhammer 40k fan. Space Hulk Deathwing is a great game. It stays true to its original inspiration, which is of course the Space Hulk board game, while putting in new ideas, new gameplay elements that makes it a very unique experience. And it's the closest thing thus far that 40k fans have had to their very own Vermintide. And so for me, it's well worth picking up. And for the price that you're paying, you're not paying it for a $60 game, it's a $40 game. And it's well worth it, especially in the fact that not only can you play the single player campaign, and there's a good 10 hours worth of the single player campaign, but then on top of that you have the multiplayer campaign, which will last you however long you wish to play it. I highly recommend Space Hulk Deathwing, and that is my review of Space Hulk Deathwing. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game. Please like, please share the video, make sure to subscribe, and as always, I will see you next time.